Prospect challenges you to stop, think, and succeed. Your work in and around the airport is vital to the safety of airline passengers and crews. It is critical to your safety to know what to do and how to do it right. Sometimes it's as simple as taking just a moment to stop and think, to avoid a serious accident. So let's see how much you know. At times, we'll bring in our Prospect traffic light, asking you to stop. Then we'll give you a question to think about, and we'll ask you for the correct answer. Finally, we'll reveal the answer you need to succeed. It's a simple and very effective way of testing your knowledge. So let's begin when you approach the vehicle you'll be using for your assigned job. Stop and think. What's the first thing you should be doing here? We'll give you 10 seconds to answer. You check the vehicle for safety before using it. A good way to start is to do a safety walk around the vehicle. But what specific items on the vehicle do you check? We'll give you 20 seconds to make a list. Here are some things to check prior to each use. First, brakes. Tires. Gauges, including fuel gauges, the oil gauge, and the battery gauge. Lights. As shown here, one person can check for tail light damage. However, a second person is required to make sure they are operational. Now you're ready to go. Or are you? Stop and think. What else should you do here? We'll give you 10 seconds to answer. Make sure the area is clear before you move the vehicle. The airport is a very busy place, with many different types of vehicles having to travel through these crowded areas to get everything done. For this next question, we have created a 3D computer animated scene from the airport so that we can literally get a bird's eye view of the traffic activity. But stop and think. What's wrong with this picture? As before, we'll give you 10 seconds. What's wrong? The vehicles we have circled are outside the zipper lanes. If you drive any kind of vehicle for Prospect, you should always drive within the posted lanes. It's absolutely vital to your safety and the safety of everyone else that workers drive within the posted lanes, obey all traffic signs, and yield right-of-way when necessary, and keep a safe distance from all parked aircraft. But stop and think about question 5. Which of the following vehicles do you yield the right-of-way to? Is it A, aircraft, B, emergency vehicles, C, vehicles already in the lane, or D, all of the above? Again, we'll give you 10 seconds. The correct answer is D, all of the above. You should give the right-of-way to aircraft, emergency vehicles, and vehicles already in the lane. Here is a worker driving a vehicle and approaching an aircraft. Notice the approach and the position of the belt loader. Here's another worker in another vehicle approaching another aircraft. Again, notice the approach. Looking at each of these scenes one more time, now stop and think. What's wrong with each of these scenes? As before, we'll give you 10 seconds. So, did you know the answer? Let's go back to the first scene. The driver never stops to test the brakes, and he leaves the belt loader up. And as he reaches the aircraft, the belt loader is still up. This is very dangerous and could cause damage to the aircraft and the baggage carrier. Now, let's watch him do it right. He approaches the aircraft with the belt loader in the lower position, and he tests the brakes before the vehicle reaches the aircraft. He reaches the aircraft with the belt loader in the lower position, and he only raises it into position once he has stopped the vehicle. Now, let's look at the other scene. Again, the driver did not stop to test the brakes, and he approached the aircraft with the belt loader and the safety bars up. Now, let's watch him do it the right way. He pulls up to the aircraft first, and he tests the brakes before the vehicle reaches the aircraft. Then, he raises the belt loader and the safety bars after the vehicle is in position. Here is why this is so important. This is actual damage to an aircraft from a vehicle that ran into it with a baggage carrier up. Although this is bad, a collision of any type can cause a fuel ignition, which would be much worse. Everyone knows there is pressure to get things done on time, but safety should be our #1 concern in every situation. The driver is stopping, making his final safety stop, testing the brakes. Why don't we stop as well? And think about question 7. How many safety stops should you normally make before approaching an aircraft? Is it A, 1, B, 2, or C, 3? As before, you've got 10 seconds. You should make 3 safety stops before reaching the aircraft. Here, the driver stops at the aircraft. Then, he raises the belt loader. After putting the belt loader in place, then he raises the safety bar. But let's stop and think. What's missing here? What has he not done that he still needs to do? As always, we'll give you 10 seconds. The driver must set the brakes of the vehicle prior to leaving it. Immediately upon leaving the vehicle, he must chock its wheel. Guiding an aircraft into position is one of the most important safety jobs there is. One of the main reasons this is so critical is because of the size of these aircraft. Even the smaller ones are huge in comparison to other vehicles. These prospect workers are doing a pushback on this U.S. Airways jet aircraft. The tug pushes the aircraft, and the 2 guide persons assist in the safe pushback. But stop and think. In what other situations do you need a guide person? As before, we'll give you 10 seconds to think about your answer. Just as it's difficult to see out of a large aircraft, it's difficult to see out of certain vehicles. So you need a guide person for those as well. Now stop and think. Something else isn't right here. But what is it? You should be able to identify what's wrong And as before, we'll give you 10 seconds to think about it. The guide person is not wearing her safety vest. Here's the right way to do it, because the vest allows you to be seen by everyone. Neglecting to wear the safety vest not only puts her safety at risk, it puts our company and the airport at risk, were something to happen to her if someone didn't see her. It's easy to do, and you should wear your safety equipment at all times when you're working in and around the airfield. Safety vest should not only be worn, but attached to the bottom as shown here. You should also wear your ear protection and other safety gear required for your specific job, such as gloves, eye protection, or knee pads. Now, here is an interesting photo, and this brings up our next question for you. How do you think this happened? As before, you've got 10 seconds. Could you figure out what took place here? An employee inside the cabin opened the door and jettisoned an emergency exit slide. When you are inside an aircraft, do not touch any of the operational equipment, including doors, electronics, or anything in the cockpit. Working together effectively is vital to our collective success. When driving a high-lift truck with stabilizers, after guiding the driver to bring the vehicle into position safely, the guide person will chock the wheel on the passenger side of the vehicle as soon as it's stopped. This is done before the driver exits the vehicle, making sure it won't move. Here's another prospect employee working near an aircraft. As he moves the lav truck to the aircraft, stop and think. What is the least amount of clearance you should leave between the lav truck and the aircraft? As before, we'll give you 10 seconds. You should have at least a 3-foot clearance between the lav vehicle and any part of the aircraft. Now, let's watch him do the job step by step and see if you can predict his actions. So stop and think. What is the first thing he should do here? You've got 10 seconds. First, he tests the brakes as he approaches the aircraft. Upon arrival, put the vehicle in neutral and set all brakes. The lav truck must remain running for the pump to operate. Now, stop and think. What is the first thing he should do? Again, you've got 10 seconds. He should first chock the tire to keep the vehicle from rolling. Okay, stop again. So, what's next? As before, we'll give you 10 seconds. He puts on protective gear specific to this job. Wearing the protective gear, he carefully begins his work with the aircraft as his gloves, face shield, and long sleeves protect him from dangerous leaks. Doing the job right does not take a lot of extra time, and the results are better for everyone. We have to do a lot of work around jet aircraft, And that's why we wanted to ask you some basic questions about the jet engines. So stop and think about our next question. True or false? Jet engines have two invisible forces called blast and suction. As before, you've got 10 seconds. Hopefully, you knew that was true. Suction forces come from the front of the engine. As shown here, blast forces are emitted from the back of the engine. But stop and think about just how powerful these forces are. That's our next question. True or false? Jet engine suction is powerful enough to pull an adult into the engine. Again, you've got 10 seconds. That's true. Even with a jet engine running at idle speed, its suction is still powerful enough to pull an adult into it. Jet engines are incredibly powerful in the front and the back when they are running, so respect them and be aware of your working environment at all times. But stop and think about this question. When the anti-collision or beacon lights are flashing, it means A, the aircraft is out of service, B, the aircraft engines are active or about to be started, or C, it means nothing since there are no anti-collision lights on aircraft. Again, you've got 10 seconds. The correct answer is B. Two beacon lights are fitted to aircraft near the center of the fuselage. One is located on the bottom of the fuselage, as shown here. The beacons are turned on just before the engines are started, and they remain active until the last engine is shut down. The other beacon light is located on the top of the fuselage. These lights are colored reddish-orange and rotate to produce a flashing effect. The beacons help to serve as a safety warning to ground personnel that the engines are operational. So always be aware of this as you work around these aircraft. Before we move on, stop and think about this question. True or false? You should never drive under the loading bridge or an aircraft's fuselage or wing. As before, you've got 10 seconds. That's true. You should never drive under the loading bridge or an aircraft's fuselage or wing. Now let's stop and look at some areas around the airport and see if you can tell us what's wrong, if anything, starting with this scene. As before, we'll give you 10 seconds. This equipment should not be parked within the area of these white lines. Now, let's move the camera slightly to the right and stop. What's wrong here? As always, we'll give you 10 seconds. This cable should never be left hanging like this. It's like asking for an accident. Here's another scene. So let's stop and think about what we are seeing. Now let's move in for a closer look. Okay, seen enough? There are a couple of things wrong here, and we'll give you 10 seconds to figure out what they are. The first thing wrong is that the wheels are not chocked, a clear safety violation. And did you notice the trash that had been left on the vehicle? it could easily find its way onto the runway and cause a much larger problem. Our employees do pre-arrival foreign object debris checks, as well as checks of the gate envelope to make sure it's clear of any service equipment. It's a large concern, so don't contribute to the problem by leaving trash in vehicles. Put trash where it belongs. But stop and think about this scene. They threw away the trash. So is there anything wrong here? We'll give you 10 seconds to think about this. This container is for spill control, not for trash. So don't put trash in here. Put trash in its proper container. Now, let's watch this sequence of events and see if you can spot anything wrong in any of these scenes. Here's a baggage handling conveyor that has been moved to an aircraft, and the end of it has been moved into position. In this scene, some material has already been placed on the conveyor belt. Now, here are all three scenes again. Each represents a situation you would probably find in the normal course of your work. So, have you found anything wrong? We'll again give you 10 seconds to think about it. Now, let's look at the scenes again. Here's the first one. Did you catch it? He never stopped to test his brakes before approaching the aircraft. And what about this scene? Actually, there is nothing wrong here. This positioning is correct. The intent of the rubber bumper is to protect the aircraft. At no time does the belt loader go inside the cargo bay. Position the loader slightly below the door frame while offloading and slightly above the door frame while uploading the cargo. And then there was this. What's wrong here? This curtain is not secured. There, that's correct. Communication and attention to detail is crucial when prospect employees work around aircraft. The details are crucial in every aspect of your work. You've got to be aware and careful, as this employee is, working with another employee to fit the pen into the slot. It's a commitment to doing it right the first time, every time. But take a look at this. What's this guy doing? He looks as if he's never seen an aircraft before. So stop and think. What is this prospect employee doing? And why is he doing it? As before, we'll give you 10 seconds. As you probably know already, he is checking the exterior of the aircraft for damage. Any damage he finds, he will report on his log. Baggage handling is an important part of the job here at Prospect, both outside the aircraft and inside the aircraft. But stop and think about this scene. Can you spot anything wrong here? As before, we'll give you 10 seconds to think about it. This employee is not wearing knee pads and his posture is incorrect, which puts him at risk for an injury. Also, he has not secured his vest, which means it could easily get caught in the equipment around him. All U.S. mail is scanned with a portable scanner. But stop. What do you do if it won't scan? We'll give you 10 seconds to come up with the answer. If it won't scan, type in the number manually. If that does not work, set the package aside for the postal worker. This procedure may vary at different airports. Transporting baggage across the airport and handling baggage through the airport is a vital part of what keeps the airport going. But stop. There's something wrong with both of the last two scenes we've shown you. Look closely. And once more, we'll give you 10 seconds to tell us if anything is wrong. Did you catch it? He never tested the bag for weight before picking it up, and that makes it easy to injure his back. Here's the correct way to do it. This one is harder to spot. Did you see it? Look closely. He has his foot hanging outside the vehicle. This practice has resulted in serious injuries for some unfortunate Prospect employees in the past. For your own safety and the safety of others, keep your arms and legs inside the vehicle at all times. At Prospect, our most important goal is to have and maintain a safe workplace for everyone. But that can only happen when those of you in our Prospect family, the men and women who do these jobs every day, make safety your #1 goal as well. When you do that, we all succeed.